Yuji Itadori, a high school student, a normal one at that, but he had incredible athleticism. A boy that had a dying grandfather and many others around him that were pretty familiar with who he was. Itadori was extremely talented, but he never really wanted to put that talents to use in terms of athletics and other things like that. Wasn't his thing. But oh my god, how his world would spin when one day he would use and find this odd looking finger. His friends would be put into danger and he would be forced into this world of curses without a second thought. Yo, what's good everybody? It's your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm finally back. I'm back with a brand new What If, but with a different anime. We're here with JJK or Jujutsu Kaisen, and we're here with What If Itadori had a stat leveling quirk. And I want to say it off the bat, just like Shield Hero, this is going to take me some time to get really good at these, or even semi-good at these. So if you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, sub, comment down below, and leave suggestions about how I can make these better. Be nice about it, please, but do your best to give me any positive suggestions or things that need to be put into these what-ifs, or maybe I skipped on a couple things, or some things don't make sense. Let me know. I appreciate it, and I'm not going to waste any more of your time, and let's get right into the what if. Let's get it. Yuji Itadori was at his high school, and he would always prefer being in his occult club. But soon after, when he was doing all of this, it seemed that this occult club was falling apart. The people at the school were saying that it's not technically a club, and that they're not doing research, and that it wasn't going actually to the point. But even with all that going on, one of his friends explains that that's not the case, that these experiences that's happening at this school, at their field, is actually due to curses. And this is blown off immediately, calling it that it was all because of ticks. Yuji, during that day, he left to see his dying grandfather, but when he called in, just as usual, his grandfather doesn't want to be seen by him. And he's not sure why, but he keeps that smile on his face and he hopes for the best. But finally, with pushback, Yuji Itadori sees his grandfather, and they have a genuine conversation, or at least as genuine as it could be. And he tells Itadori to try and save anyone he can, even if it's one person, even if it's a couple people. He's talented, and he should try his best to save anybody he possibly can in his life. But as this occurs, his grandfather turns over, and the heart monitor begins to flatline. Yuji's grandfather has just passed away. He basically doesn't even have time to mourn this yet. Standing at the front desk and talking to the nurse that helped him so much, someone walks in, tracking down Yuji, and his name is Megumi. He explains that he senses something, or sensed the finger's energy from him, and Yuji says that of course he took this little box, but I mean, he doesn't even have it anymore. He throws it to him, and he looks to see that the seal is no longer there, or obviously the finger is no longer there. And he says, where could it be? And he says that his friends probably currently have it and they're at the school. Megumi says that this is a serious problem, so they begin running, trying to get to the school, but when they make it, Megumi sees that the curse has already appeared. Tons and tons of cursed aura, it seems to be revolving around the school. He tells Yuji to stay there, and he runs in to fight against the monsters. Yuji, while on the outside of the building, questions what he should do, questions if he should go in as well, especially because he has the power. He sees all this stuff going on, and he realizes his grandfather's last words and decides to join him. As Megumi is overwhelmed by the curse, Yuji is able to break through the window to save the friends. His friends that he necessarily put in danger without knowing, in fact. They fight the curse off, luckily, but things go from bad to even worse. The fight continues on, and the curse gets the better of Megumi, and it seems like Megumi is going to die, or at least risk his life to die. And that's when Yuji decides to do something very outlandish. Very outlandish. The finger that this monster wants to swallow is going to make him excessively more powerful. Yuji hears that playing over and over in his head, and all he has to do is eat it. So he decides. He eats it and immediately destroys the curse with ease. But he's someone else now. He's possessed by another curse, by someone extremely powerful, by the name of Sukuna. Sukuna stands on the roof looking over, saying that it's beautiful. So many women, children, but as he says this, he's cut off, and Yuji was able to suppress him. But as he does this, he looks right in front of him. He sees something odd, a flash of green, and a bunch of statistical categories show up in front of him. What the heck is that? And Megumi asks what just happened and what is he talking about, and he prepares to exorcise him, but Yuji says that, well, he's good, that he suppressed Sukuna and that there's nothing to really fear about. Yuji continues to try and convince Megumi of this, that he's completely under control, but Megumi is so scared at this point. He's not thinking of, well, if Sukuna is truly suppressed, can I really take that risk if he actually is? But luckily, Satoru Gojo shows up. Megumi's teacher, hearing about Sukuna's finger, finally arrives and learns that, well, Yuji ate the finger. And Gojo says that he should give Sukuna control for a brief period, and he wants to fight him. And he wants to just test his power out, and it should be all fine and dandy anyways. And Yuji says that asks if that's really a good idea, and Gojo says it's fine. So he enters into Sukuna's form, and Sukuna basically proceeds to get his ass beat. It's really that simple. He gets beat down pretty bad, and then after 10 seconds, Yuji gains control once again. But right after this, he looks at his statistical categories, and it seems like he's gotten a debuff of 25%. And he's kind of confused by this, but sees that he has some attribute points. And there's various attributes. There's strength, durability, health, speed, various other things. And he's confused to see this. Maybe this has something to do with Sukuna's finger. And he even asked them about this, asking Gojo. But Gojo says that that's just not the case. That's not how that works at all. And they're extremely confused. Itadori thinks to himself that maybe this is a power special to him. Maybe this is some special cursed power or whatever they call it. He's not so sure, but it is a theory. But later on, Gojo does explain to Yuji that the Jujutsu elders want him executed, taking him to a place that is restricted completely. But he says that he's able to suspend his death sentence, explaining that if Yuji can eat all 20 of the fingers, that he can then kill him and Sukuna will be permanently killed along with Yuji. He can either choose that or die now. It's really up to him. Obviously, Yuji, thinking of his grandfather's last dying wish, he thinks that maybe this is the best idea. So, Gojo decides to take Yuji to the Tokyo Metropolitan Magic Technical College, intending to train him there, pending an interview with the principal. Obviously, this is the school for the sorcerers, and more or less this goes practically the same. And he claims that his grandfather's dying wish was the reason why he wants to be a sorcerer, but the principal says that that's not, well, good enough. He needs to do more, needs to be more, needs to wish for more. The reason for him being here needs to be bigger than just that. And Yuji eventually says that he wishes to live without the regret of not stopping Sukuna. He doesn't want that. He wants to live, choose the death that he wants to personally have, a proper death, and that he wants to be able to be rid of Sukuna entirely so that he can save as many people as possible. And the principal accepts this, and basically results in him being accepted into the place. Luckily, now with all that said and done, it's now time for Yuji, Megumi, and Gojo to pick up a new first year by the name of Nobara Kukusaki to finally have their 3-man team. During this time, when they pick up Nobara and they meet her, introduce each other, and well, frankly, it goes about normal, something flashes on the screen, or the face recognition of Itadori. It seems like the screen that pops up just says mission complete. It seems like gaining a 3-man team has given him a boost, or at least attributes in his stats, so now he can implement them. So he decides to put them a couple in strength, a couple in durability, and other stuff like that, and a couple in speed. Not really doing much at all. I mean, it's a simple mission for a couple stats. We're talking maybe 2 to 3 points in each of the stats minimum, or maximum, excuse me. So with all that said and done, they begin speaking about their first mission, and this leads them, or leads Gojo, to take them to an abandoned building near a cemetery, in which they're pretty mad to hear about, because frankly they thought they were going to somewhere nicer and better. But I mean, this is curse hunting. Why would you even think that? But this building is going to be occupied by various curses, and Itadori begins to move throughout the entire building. But Nobara says that she doesn't care and that she would rather go to the very top, and that she'll handle it from there. She'll go from the top and he'll come from the bottom, and it would be simple. And this would actually flip on its head pretty quickly. Nobara would be put into a bad situation because of one of the curses, because the curses here are far stronger and smarter than the ones that she's faced before. But luckily, Yuji is going to be able to help her out pretty quickly, smashing through the wall to save Nobara and the boy, smashing basically the curse immediately, but the curse attempts to flee nonetheless. But luckily Nobara is able to finish it off with her straw doll technique, especially with the curse being slightly more injured, frankly because of the fact that Itadori is a decent amount stronger than in normal canon. Not too much stronger, but definitely a little bit stronger. He then gets another mission, a mission complete, saying to defeat a curse in the abandoned building. It seems like his missions as a Jujutsu sorcerer is lining up pretty well with, you could call this, obviously, his special upgrading tiles or upgrading stats. It works pretty well. So he again adds a couple points to strength, health, speed, and other things like that, being that we can say it's pretty well rounded, maybe a 3-3-2-2 type of split, nothing too outlandish, but definitely getting there as he goes, being at a level of maybe you could say 5 or 6 at this point. He then heads out the building, and Gojo tells them that they did a good job, noticing that Nobara is obviously pretty psycho, so that does definitely work out for them. This entire event then convinces Nobara to enroll, obviously, and as a reward for completing the test, Gojo takes them all out to dinner. About a month later, they actually do hear about these 3 sorcerers that were dispatched to exorcise a cursed womb of some sorts and at a detention center in West Tokyo, leaving one of them actually dead. This obviously puts Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara to investigate the appearance of this so-called womb with the assistant director of Jujutsu High, informing Yuji that they believe that the womb could transform into a special grade curse spirit. That's obviously hypothetical though. The trio learns that they have to investigate, not fight, so that's exactly what they do. They realize that they don't want to fight in this situation, they either run or die. The goal is to basically verify if there's any survivors and verify if there's actually people that are dead, and they want to keep track of the people that are killed in this scenario, in which they walk in as, you could say, a barrier is created around the area to make sure nobody can get in or out, or mostly get in. But during this time, something seems odd. Immediately they can tell that in the juvenile center, everything seems to be very different. Now changed completely, they actually begin to see a lot of terrifying things. It seems to be an infinite chaotic wasteland that the inmates are practically all just brutally murdered. And this does lead to obviously Megumi and Yuji kind of having an argument, basically talking about bringing the dead bodies to show their families, to make them have some closure. But Megumi disagrees, and he says that's a horrible idea, and he then sees something, or they both see something. Nobara, currently not here, sent to investigate some other place. Well, they see a demon dog dead, murdered. Megumi is right next to the special grade, and so is Yuji as well. They are in complete shock, not knowing what to do, and the weapon that Yuji had, he tries to slice it at the special grade, but it's instantly torn off. He is bloodied by this cursed spirit badly, and he plans to unleash Sukuna once Megumi and Nobara have found the exit. And initially, Megumi is against this idea, but then runs away. Luckily, they were able to escape, and after Yuji getting absolutely beat senseless, he more or less activates Sukuna, in which Sukuna is mad about this, thinking that maybe he can go down and just kill the rest of those people or whatever, and that he can find them and then kill them. And he tries to conversate with the special grade, but they're obvious he's basically a wild animal. And Sukuna is frustrated by this, trying to basically convince the special grade, but it leads him to basically annihilating him, pinning him up against the wall, taking off multiple limbs, and slicing him into pieces. Frankly, Sukuna is far out of range of this special grade, but not only on top of that, he actually is so far above him because of a boost that he's getting from his stat leveling system. It seems that Yuji has come up with something. It's very interesting, actually. It seems that your little stat leveling thingy, or whatever you want to call it, Mr. Yuji Itadori, it seems to be benefiting me more than benefiting you. Actually, something very, very interesting. Maybe I should keep you around for a little longer. Or maybe not. Sukuna basically kills the special grade, pinning him against the wall like I said, and he heads out to see Megumi. Once he obviously meets and sees Megumi, he begins to chastise him for running away, and now the fight between Sukuna and Megumi begins. But Fushiguro, or Megumi Fushiguro, cannot do a thing. And actually, to put them on a ticking time bomb and make sure Yuji doesn't, you could say, switch back, he pulls out his own heart, throwing it to the side, believing that Yuji wouldn't be so reckless to try and take over while they, have a little battle. Because if he does, he'll die a very, very bad death. But honestly, this fight goes exactly the same. Megumi even admits that he was selfish to save Yuji, that he wanted him to be alive, and that, he's being overpowered by a wide margin. Megumi is trying his best and even is about to pull out anything he possibly can to maybe even the score, maybe even everything out. But before he can, Yuji emerges, and he smiles, telling him not to worry and not to feel bad, but quickly he dies from blood loss, and that's when they begin mourning Yuji Itadori. But what they don't understand and what they don't know is that the vessel for Sukuna is not dead, at least not yet. Yuji wakes up in Sukuna's domain, and they begin to negotiate more and more about where they should be going and if he'll let him go into a pact. That Sukuna basically wants him to make a deal. Sukuna tricks Yuji into making a deal with him that will basically let him take over at any time without killing or destruction. But this idea is erased in Yuji's memory. But Yuji awakens on the table and reunites with Gojo, and finally, true training is going to begin. Yuji has more passion now, more want to get stronger. He wants to master this curse power that he actually saw for a split second when he was fighting the obviously the special grade, but also his stat leveling system. He wants to get stronger based on that as well. He wants to make sure that nobody else can die at the hands of him, and that he doesn't even need to use Sukuna ever again. And he is asked by Gojo if Sukuna has made a deal, maybe a pact of some sorts, but obviously Yuji doesn't know. He says that he has no clue if any of that even happened, and he doesn't remember anything. He remembers it being maybe brought up, but nothing like specific by any means. And that was part of obviously the plan, and unluckily enough, they're not going to know exactly how that works. This then leads to obviously the training he does while watching movies, which a little break the third wall or fourth wall. That's kind of funny. I like the idea of watching movies with that cursed doll. That's actually really funny. But he continues that training, and he does see some growth not only in his curse powers, but also his powers in general. His stat leveling system powers actually continuously grows and grows and grows, and it seems like he's actually getting stronger based on that and based on what he's doing. So his strength, his durability, his speed, his health, it's all going up in his stat leveling system, in which he does explain to Gojo the best he possibly can in depth. But Gojo says that he doesn't really understand it, and it might be some sort of cursed magic that he's able to use, or it could be anything really, or it might have something to do with eating Sukuna's finger, and that since he's a perfect vessel, it reacted in this way. But nobody necessarily knows how exactly it's going to work. But with all that said, Gojo leaves him to just train on his own. That's until Gojo finds something that could be very useful for him to see. So, during the fight with a very, very strong cursed spirit, he brings, obviously, Yuji there to see it, showing him various techniques that a obviously cursed spirit can use, and on top of that, any techniques that Gojo can use. This is very, very important information that will definitely be useful later on, but frankly at the moment isn't necessarily useful at all. Unfortunately though, well, the cursed spirit eventually is able to escape. That's, well, at the hands of someone else. Someone else is able to help him leave, and Gojo, unfortunately saving Yuji from being actually obliterated into these spikes, allows them to leave as well. During this time, Nobara and Megumi were actually training for the upcoming exchange event, but unfortunately Yuji would not be a part of that training, at least for now. Currently, Yuji is actually being approached by a potential investigation. Some high schoolers were found completely disfigured and killed. 3 high schoolers just completely destroyed at a theater, and is approached by a teenage boy. So with this film in hand and knowing what occurred, Yuji, and actually not Gojo, someone that would quote-unquote replace him, a former or ex-salaryman, a first-grade Jujutsu sorcerer by the name of Naomi, Kento, would actually storm onto the scene of the crime, in which Yuji is able to actually see the curse remnants pretty easily actually. This time around, his stats are actually helping him increase and develop a lot quicker, and Kento is slightly impressed by this. He says that it is good that he is seeing such, you could call growth, but says that he needs to grow at a little bit faster rate, especially with the already advantage that he has. And Yuji remarks that it doesn't seem like he can compliment people very well, and he shakes his head. Kento says that there's no reason to compliment someone on something that should be already the case. He only goes based off of facts, and that's it. But while they're heading out to check out all of these, well, remnants, they're actually attacked, or at least a fight ensues, where Yuji reveals a curse technique, and he uses it on this well, monster of some sorts, amplifying his power of his punches. Being a slight bit stronger, it actually does affect the monster a little bit more than it would have initially. But Kento does realize something. Realizes that one of the monsters that they're fighting actually has a watch on. realizing that these are humans. And obviously, this is a teaching lesson for Yuji, explaining to Yuji that these basically are humans, quote unquote, but they don't want to live like this. So they end up killing him, and this is the first time Yuji actually kills a quote unquote human. He doesn't know how to feel about this. He's horrified at this fact, but he can't really sweat on it. And so does Kento, explains the same thing as well, and begins to go on a deep dive analysis to try to figure some things out. He figures some things out about the direction or where this person is, and he finds the area, sending more or less Yuji and the assistant director more or less on a wild goose chase. And the assistant director knows this already, but obviously Kento doesn't want to put Yuji into harm's way already for no apparent reason, especially knowing that this could possibly be a trap. The next goal though for Yuji is to actually talk with someone that was on the scene that day by the name of Junpei. He actually finds Junpei talking with one of his teachers, and Junpei wants to kill this teacher for the way he's acting, and he's about to do so, but a low-grade curse actually interrupts them, and Yuji more or less heads the teacher off to a different direction and comes all the way back around the block to talk to Junpei and basically asks to walk him home. So they begin conversating, and frankly Yuji doesn't necessarily want to talk about this without the assistant director here, but he decides that since he's not answering, that he'll just question him himself. He begins asking about the incident, about if he did it, and about some other things if he saw anything. And he explains that he really didn't see much, but he did see a person, some person that spoke with him. And Yuji and him entirely is just glowing of this warming and welcoming, and Junpei seems to be very welcoming of Yuji as well, even when Junpei's mother comes across and sees them both and invites them to dinner. They begin to all talk and chat about various different things, but something very frightening happens to Itadori, something that he wasn't expecting. It's a heads up with his mission request system, and it basically says mission complete. Made Junpei your friend, which is good and all, and that's what he's happy about, but it says that there's another upcoming mission, and that mission is detected and has a title that is called Junpei. Your new friend is in danger. Itadori is shocked to hear this, but he doesn't know what that even means. Why would that he be in danger? What's gonna happen? And unluckily enough, he's forced to, leave. He has to head off, but he says that he'll talk to Junpei very soon as well, and they even exchange numbers. And he says that he'll definitely be speaking with him in the near future. What Itadori didn't know though is leaving was a very bad idea. Junpei's mother was killed by a cursed spirit that was hunting down one of Sukuna's fingers. But not only that, this forced Junpei into a different mindset, a way different mindset. Mahito convinces Junpei that one of his bullies was the culprit, and that he needs to go down to that school and handle business. So he does just that. He heads down there and begins to wreak havoc, as a barrier begins to more or less enclose the entirety of the school. Everybody begins to pass out, one after another, as Junpei begins to approach the person that he believes is responsible for doing such a thing, and begins to kill him. And just in time though, Yuji is able to confront him, telling him that this isn't the way. He can't go around killing people, but Junpei is not listening. Junpei is no longer there at all, and he begins fighting Itadori, fighting him what it feels like to the death. But during this entire time, Junpei continues to say that he needs to just back off. Sorcerer, back off now. But luckily, with all the boosts in strength, he's able to keep up relatively well without really much trouble, and he's kind of just making sure that Junpei can just wear himself out. But unluckily enough, this would go very, very off the rails when someone shows up. Mahito shows up right behind Junpei and begins to talk to Yuji. Begins to say all this meaningless stuff and puts his hand on the back of Junpei and begins to change and disfigure and turn Junpei into a disfigured creature. Yuji begins to panic. All he wants is for his friend to be okay. That's all he wants right now. He tries his best to maybe conjure up anything, a curse magic, something that can save his friend, but nothing works. Yuji even asks Sukuna. This is all he can think about. Asks Sukuna to heal Junpei, and he doesn't care. He'll give everything. He'll give him full control. Just save Junpei. But as he says this, Sukuna begins to laugh at him. You really think I'm gonna do that? You got another thing coming. And Yuji can't even think now. He just sees Junpei on the ground. He begs Yuji to help him before he dies. And he dies right in front of him. And Mahito just says that, well, it seems like he was overwhelmed by the, you could say the disfigurement. And Yuji is furious. Pissed to the point he's not even thinking. Attacking Mahito's body, but at the same time attacking his soul. Causing the cursed spirit to bleed. And Mahito is shocked to see this. And Mahito feels that the power gap is far beyond Yuji's even control, but that's not the case. Yuji is keeping up, and it's blatantly obvious that he's keeping up. Mahito realizes that he's going to have to try and play a little dirty. So he impales Yuji in multiple spots, but luckily Yuji is still able to push forward and lunge himself, pulling out the holes and the spikes that are through him, anything that is being impaled within him. His durability is even more than normal because of his stat leveling system, and now he's furious. He just failed a mission, and it comes up on his screen that he failed to save his friend, failed to save him, and now he has another mission to beat down Mahito, and that's all he wants right now. His relief. He wants to beat him at the inch of his life and then tear life away from him itself. But during this fight, Mahito sees an opening and tries to disfigure Yuji. But as he does this, someone isn't very happy. Sukuna, standing on top of his little throne, stares at Mahito. You do not know what you're getting yourself into. So now, I want you to think about it before you do this ever again. This is your one and only chance. If I see you again, I'm going to brutally kill you. And that is a promise. You're just a pawn in this. I hope you realize that, Mahito. Mahito immediately is able to snap out of it. But just as he does, Yuji begins to slam his head over and over and over again. Every time he hits him with his head, it begins to get stronger and stronger, injuring Mahito to a good bit. And that is when Mahito gets thrown to the other side, and Yuji will not be alone anymore. Nanami arrives on the scene and asks Yuji if he's okay, and he says he's fine. That the other people, or there's a lot of people in there, so they cannot be defeated here. And Nanami responds that he's asking if he's fine, and he nods, saying that luckily he got a nice little special skill. He's confused to hear this, and he explains the little system he has, very roughly. Obviously it takes him about 3 seconds to explain what he's talking about, and he says that he gave himself a nice ability after reaching a certain level, and luckily these holes, they're not going to matter very much. They begin to slowly but surely regenerate. And the way that the skill works is that when he's standing there on its own, not doing anything, then he's able to slowly but surely regenerate. But that only happens when he's not in action. So once he goes back into it, this regeneration will stop. Nanami smiles and says, and asks about the face of Mahito. And he says that he smashed his face in with his forehead. And Nanami says that this may be tough, but if they work together properly, they'll be able to kill this guy and not let him go and not let him leave ever again. Yuji nods. This will be a fight for the ages. Yuji Itadori is in the middle of getting his first taste at what a true battle with someone with insane cursed powers truly is. And with that said, we're gonna wrap this episode up here. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, sub, and comment down below any suggestions. This is part 1 of 2 with what if Itadori had a stat leveling system. I know this first part had very limited stat leveling system involved. There was not much I can at least get around with that. I had a certain time that he was gonna get it, and frankly this would be the first example of it. So if you want to see more creative things done with his stat leveling system, you're gonna have to wait till the next part. Make sure you have notifications on for that and be ready for it. If you're enjoying at least the Jujutsu Kaisen what if so far, make sure to say that you want more, make sure to add suggestions. And that's about it, and hope all of y'all enjoyed. Have an amazing day. Later.